Chapter 18 of Against Odds by Lawrence L. Lynch. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 18. If you'll find one, I'll find the other. It was through the boy Bill that we learned finally how the brunette and her companions made their escape from Wooded Island after the attack upon the guard. I found the lad waiting upon my return from Washington Avenue, and full of the excitement of his story. He had struck upon her trail not long after she had parted from the guard, it would seem. He had been watching upon Midway Plaisance until thoroughly weary, when he caught sight of her going east, and followed her to the Turkish Bazaar as before. This time she did not retire behind the curtains, much to his relief, but she spoke a few words to the tired-looking woman behind the bedecked sales-table, and then left as she came, going straight to the entrance upon Midway, which opened upon Madison Avenue, as on a former occasion, and from thence, as before, past Miss Jenrys' rooms, and so to her own at the café. Here again Bill was obliged to loiter 3 long hours, and then a woman passed him so close that her face was distinctly visible, and entered the place. He recognized her at once as the woman of the tired face, though she was now dressed quite smartly, and with no remnant of the Oriental in her costume. This I gathered from his description of her attire, which, while it failed to give things their proper names as set down in the books of fashion, was sufficiently vivid, and enabled me to easily recognize the person who had aided the little brunette by impersonating Miss Jenrys the night before. She had entered the café and disappeared again through a side door, to return, before long, in company with the brunette. They had then partaken of a hearty meal at one of the café tables, and had entered the fair grounds at dusk. "I didn't have no trouble a tracking 'em, though I had been dreading a reg'lar bo-peep dance, seeing how late 'twas getting. But they just sauntered along, quite slow, only I noticed they was always careful not to get into no strong lights. They kept on the shady side of things, 'specially the tallest one with the big cowboy hat. So I just monkeyed around till I see 'em start to go round the 'Lectricity Building. Then I just slipped over between the 'lectric and mines, you know, and come ahead of 'em just as they turned towards the bridges. I tell ye," he declared with enthusiasm in a bad cause, "they couldn't have struck a better place 'an that there second bridge. First, there's the t'other bridge, and that little island on one side, and 'most everybody going round the mines on t'other side, 'cause 'twas best lighted. Then there was them little bushy islands, and all that lagoon on the not a speck of light, 'cept a few clean across the liberal arts shop, and most of them little lamps on the island gone out. I tell ye, Mr. Masters, I felt sort o' glad when I seen ye comin' acrost and hide in the bushes." "Oh, you saw me, did you?" I said, to hasten him on. "I should say! I was a layin' flat 'longside of them little shrubs on the other side of the path, right where you turned off." "Well, go on, Bill." "Well, sir, I was so busy watchin' them women that I didn't notice nothin' else 'cept you and the guard. Of course I thought he was 'tendin' to his biz, when they stopped to talk on the bridge. I began to crawl along close to the bridge, and then you know how it was all comin' so sudden well, I see the feller go over, and seen you start towards the water, and I just took after the others. Well, sir, 'twas too slick the way they managed. Right alongside them willers there was one of them little skiffs that stuck round the island for show, or one just like 'em. It lay just where that little woody strip had come right 'tween the island and the other side, and 'twas all dark there. Wall, they all ran that way 'crost the grass, and me after 'em, close as 'twas safe to git. Two of 'em, the tall woman and one of the men, got into the skiff, and the other two struck off north, keeping on the grass and under the shade. I followed after 'em. They went pretty fast, too, till they came most to them hoodoo tea shops, you know. We hadn't met a soul so far, but it was lighter there, and I see there was a guard comin' towards them, and what d'ye s'pose they did?" "Oh, go on, Billy." "Well, I had got pretty clost, and I seen them whisperin' together, and then it seemed to me that they wasn't so far away as they had been a minute before. Then flash came a fizz-match, and sure enough there they was, facing towards me, and the very way they come, and holding the match to the ground. Just then the guard come up, and they told him they or she dropped their purse, and was looking for it. And when he asked when, she said, oh, an hour ago, when they walked across the island to see the horticultural place lighted, and the guard said he feared they wouldn't find it, and went on, telling them they'd better hurry out. And then he went back the way they'd come, crossed the bridge and all, and every little way they'd light a match, and course I got so close I heard her say, 'It must have been when I fell down.' I thought somebody got a fall when they run from the bridge down into the bushes." "Well, did you find where they went?" "Drat the luck, no. I'd followed 'em out midway, when a couple o' guards stopped me, and afore I got out from their grip, the two of 'em was out o' sight." I was not surprised to hear this. I was quite convinced that the gang had in some manner secured a safe and secret lurking place in the Plaisance. Still, somehow, I had hoped for something more from Billy's report, and felt somewhat disappointed. But I had yet to learn its true value. During my absence there had come a message from the bureau asking our presence there. It was the Lausch robbery that required our presence, so the message read, and Dave had returned an answer promising our presence at the earliest moment of leisure. We did not feel so deeply interested in the Lausch robbery then as in some other matters, but when we had dismissed our boy shadower we went at once to the bureau. There was considerable excitement at the office, and with good reason. Some of Monsieur Lausch's jewels had been returned, and in a most novel manner. Early in the morning a guard had appeared with the treasure in his hands, and a singular story upon his lips. "Last night," he had said, "while crossing the north-east end of the wooded island, at quite a late hour, he had encountered a man and woman searching for a lost purse. They were quite certain it had been lost on the island, and he being then on duty and unable to delay, told them that he would search for it next day, and passed on. Early in the morning he had entered upon the search at the place where he had met the two, and, finding no trace of the lost purse, had turned his search into a stroll about the island. He was quite familiar with the place, having done guard duty there, and going close to the water's edge, at a point where a favourite view was to be had, he observed that one of the skiffs that were moored here and there about the island was gone. Going closer, he saw that it had been roughly torn from its moorings, and the soft soil showed that several people had left traces of their presence. It was in stooping closer to look at these footprints that he had noticed a bit of string trailing across the grass just beyond, and taking hold of this, he found a weight upon it, which proved to be a little chamois-skin bag containing some uncut gems. He had at once reported this find to his superior officer, being an honest guard, and was ordered to come with it to the bureau. There was no room for doubt or mistake. The chamois bag contained a portion of the jewels stolen from the pavilion of Monsieur Lausch. There were some half-dozen of the dew-drop sparklers taken with the silver-leaf tray, one large topaz, and two of the smaller ones, and there were also two solitaire rings which were not of the Lausch collection. The bag containing these had been securely tied to a stout cord, nearly a yard in length, and fastened, doubtless, about the body of some person, so securely that the double sailor knot remained. A very hard knot indeed, but, alas for human calculations, something, it was evident, having a fine, keen edge, had come in contact with this cord and had cut it smoothly in two. As Dave Brainerd and I saw these things, the same thought entered both our minds, and we exchanged one swift glance of mutual meaning, after which we stood and heard Monsieur Lausch ejaculate and wonder, and question the officers, discuss and theorize and prophesy, ourselves saying little, and eager to be away from this place, that we might take counsel together concerning this new thing. Singularly enough, no one seemed to think of connecting this find with the attack upon the guard at the bridge. and finally they decided to advertise the gems, as if they were still in the hands of the finder, who only awaited a reward to yield them up; and, as little more could be done, Dave and myself withdrew from the council, where we had been little more than lookers on. As we were taking our leave, the mail was brought in by a messenger, and we were called back from the outer office to hear a letter read. It was from an up-town jewellery house, at least it bore the card of the house, and it reported that an emerald, large, fine, and of great value, had been purchased by the head of the firm, under somewhat suspicious circumstances, and from a woman. Further information, and a description of the woman, the letter stated, might be had by addressing, or appointing a meeting with, the writer. And now my interest suddenly awoke, and to such good purpose that I managed to be chosen as the person to go to the city and interview the writer, perhaps also the purchaser of the jewel; and this accomplished, Brainerd and I withdrew in haste. There was no doubt in our minds the story told by the guard fitted too well in Billy's tale to admit of doubt. The bag of stolen jewels had been lost by the little brunette, and Dave was fully of my mind. "I can't see how it was done," he said, as we discussed the matter later, "but it's plain enough that she had missed the bag, and that they were searching for it when the guard came up. Of course she wouldn't say that she had lost a bag of jewels." "Hardly," I replied. "As for the how, I can very well see how that string might have been severed. You know my opinions about this brunette. A concealed knife may have done the mischief, or one of those steels that help to give ladies a slender waist, broken perhaps by the vigorous running, may have cut the string. It would only require a little rubbing to do the thing. I tell you, Dave, it looks as if we would have a full account to settle with this individual, and I begin to feel the ground under my feet. I'd like to know who the men were who threw the guard over the bridge, though." "Don't you think Greenback Bob capable of it?" "Quite." "And Delbras?" "Capable enough, but he was not in it." "Are you sure, Carl?" "I mean to be shortly," I replied. "Dave, old man, don't ask me any questions yet as to how it's to be done, but I believe that before this World's Fair closes, you and I will have gotten Delbras and Bob out of mischief's way, settled the brunette problem, and thrown light on the diamond robbery." "And how about that lost young Englishman, Sir Carroll Rae, and missing Gerald Trent?" I turned and faced him. "Old man," I said, "if you'll find one, I'll find the other." Chapter 19